In the arcane scene, Finn is attempting to garner Sevika's support in his coup against Silco. What are the 4 pillars here? Well, the writer's goal was to eventually get Finn, Sevika, and Silco in the same room so that Silco could have his loyalty speech and get Finn killed, but here was to get Sevika thinking about Finn's points even if she didn't join him in the end. The context is that Silco is unaware of Finn's plot because he's a little busy with other things, which only emphasizes Finn's point. The lenses on display here are that Sevika follows whoever she sees as being the best fit to lead the Undercity, and Finn currently believes that to be himself. This allows for him to take the lead in the conversation, and for Sevika to have more of a passive role without it feeling like the writer's trying to force a monologue, and it explains why she doesn't immediately shut him down. Again, the reasonability of the dialogue gets a thumbs up here. Sevika, who thinks she has nothing to gain or lose here, speaks more plainly than Finn, who is trying to appear calm and assertive. Even when he says let's be plain, his rhythm is smooth and his speech is metaphorical, not very plain. The scene itself begins with Sevika sitting alone and tinkering with her mechanical arm. She doesn't even acknowledge Finn when he shows up, just says that Silco's not available while working on her arm. Finn spots the golden opportunity to start up by stating that he was actually there to talk to Sevika, which catches her off guard just long enough for him to start complimenting her reputation. Sevika, however, is a no-nonsense person and Finn is an idiot, so she can see what's going on and calls him out for it. Finn proceeds to drop the pretense and appeals to her logic rather than her emotions. While he may not be the brightest bulb in the bunch, he does know which of Sevika's strings to pull at, and the next few lines are one smooth block that, again, distills the idea of the scene down to a point.
He's slipping. The Undercity is devolving into chaos. And somehow I get the feeling he isn't up there balancing bookshelves. Jinx gets a whim. Suddenly his spine's made a jelly. And here you are, shoveling his ego is one thing, brains another.
He wraps up by lighting her cigar and claiming that there's bigger fish than Silco. What's incredible is that all this unfolds over only a minute and a half. In almost no time at all, the writers have completely inverted the power dynamic between the two characters and set up the rest of the subplot. The power of the pillar. How about that scene from Attack of the Clones? For this one, we're gonna work backwards by starting with a breakdown of the scene and following it up with the analysis. It features Anakin and Padme theoretically flirting while the pair is off on Naboo to protect Padme from threats on her life. Anakin prods Padme into talking about what presumably was her first romance. She explains that they met in a children's government program and that he went on to live a life in the private sector, to which Anakin responds that maybe he was the smart one out of the pair. Yep, nothing says I like you more than you're an idiot for picking the job you did. Anyway, she confronts him about this and he plays it off as a joke, implying that he still does like her.
You really don't like politicians, do you?
I like 2 or 3, but I'm not really sure about one of them. I don't think the system works.
Okay, that right there is where the scene derails. He spends the rest of the time talking about how maybe things in the galaxy would be better if one person was in charge of the whole government, and the scene ends with them moving right past it and continuing to flirt.
Red flags here!
If this scene doesn't work, it doesn't. It's not for lack of effort. Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, and John Williams were all on point here, doing their best to make this writing work. Unfortunately, it's too disjointed. The change up from childhood memories to debating the merits of a dictatorship feels jarring, in part because that transition where Anakin complains about politicians is extremely forced. I said that having multiple topics in a scene can work, but this is a good example of what happens when you don't have the pillars of a scene established. You force the principal lines regardless. Now, what was the goal here? To show how out of the loop Anakin and Padme are in this moment, and to show their love blossoming. Context? Neither of them knows anything else that's going on in the plot, and the world is their oyster. This should be the prime time for this kind of thing. It starts to break down with the lenses. Anakin is severely embittered toward the system and despises almost anyone who has anything to do with it, except for Padme, which conflicts him. Padme, on the other hand, believes in the power of democracy inherently, which spurs on a back and forth between the two about it. Not bad in theory, but also not very romantic. Honestly, the nail in the coffin for this thing was the reasonability. A prime example of why I say it's a pillar of dialogue. I get that George was trying to paint Anakin as an awkward guy, but come on, give me a break. Nobody talks like this. Even actual dictators don't go around saying, hey, you know what would be awesome, before they rise to power.
Big red flags!
Given all that, we can see the issue with working in the political stuff. If we see that their views on an issue that would be central to their relationship are opposed, why do they just move right on? This isn't a bad scene on principle, it just had way too much going on that directly contrasted with itself. Perhaps the stuff about politics could have gone into a later scene to build tension, maybe even in Revenge of the Sith. This way we can focus on the blooming relationship between Anakin and Padme, allowing the scene to flow much more naturally and further emphasizing the idea that it's the two of them in their own little world for the time being. In its place, since we want to show the two of them connecting, we could have Anakin open up about his past as a slave on Tatooine. A commenter on the last half of this video suggested that the blasted "I don't like sand" line would be a good door to that conversation because sand was everywhere in his childhood and he connects it with his messed up experiences. All to say that there were definitely ways to make this stuff work, but you must know what you're going for with your dialogue or you're not going to achieve it. Just for fun, let's exercise this whole method. I'm going to write a scene where a hypothetical YouTuber, let's call him AE, who moonlights as a mad scientist, is attempting to combine an alligator and a gorilla into an abominable beast he hopes hopes to unleash on his enemies. In this scene, his lab assistant, shall we say Jay, is persuading him to quit while he can and implying that either the experiment goes or his help does. Jay, I need your help to finish my experiment. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna quit if you don't stop. That sucks, but I want to finish this more than I want to keep you around. Okay, see ya. Technically, that delivered all the necessary information, but it's flatter than the excavator I accidentally demolished when I stole an unattended wrecking ball. Let's apply the 4 pillars to it and see what changes. The goal doesn't matter as much since this is an isolated scene, but the end result is that Jay needs to walk away and AE needs to double down. The context is that they presumably are close friends by this point, so they probably each make some amount of effort to maintain that even though they are becoming opposed, and neither of them really knows what will happen with the machine. With both being scientists, we can also assume that they are logical-minded fellows who like to rationalize their thinking. By this point, however, they have very differing definitions of what's reasonable, which provide the lenses for each. The reasonability depends on whether the dialogue sounds like stuff these two characters would say based on the rest of those factors, and with that in mind, I'll share what I've come up with, and you can make up your own mind about whether it passes the reasonability test. Alright, the machine's live. It's real. It's actually up and running. Warning, overload imminent. Ah, shoot. Pass me that wrench, would you? Sure. Hey, do you think stupid mechanism's sticking again? Stand by. So now it's not even functioning right. It will. Screwdriver, please. It feels like something's working against us. Yeah, like cheap equipment. You know what I mean. You knew what the risks were when you boarded this ship. Screwdriver. I joined a thought experiment, not a perversion of the natural order. Well, what's so natural about it? We conquered the natural instinct to kill one another, and that's praised. Why should this be any different? Think of all we could do with this tech. I am. We could blow ourselves up, we could rip a hole in reality. This machine could do anything if it goes haywire. Warning, overload imminent. Jay, I really need that screwdriver. Best case scenario, what? We've made a monstrosity? Do you know what kind of doors that opens for the wrong people? We're too far in to back out now. You might be. Something you want to share with the class? Shut it down, please. Don't do this. You are the only one who understands. I understand nothing about this. Warning, overload. Warning, overload. Warning, overload. And there you have it. It's a far cry from perfect, but it is miles better than the previous attempt and feels like a conversation that could really take place, albeit on a made-for-TV sci-fi horror flick. But I'm not trying to craft Shakespeare here, just show you that it works. You can literally apply this framework to any scene of your work in progress and you'll instantly be able to tell with almost clinical precision what needs to be adapted or cut out altogether. As for stylistic choices and specific character voice, well, it's on you to know your characters. Now, there are as many ways to write dialogue as there are writers, and you may find that what I've outlined today doesn't work for you. The neat thing about art is that there genuinely is no one way to make it work. This functions for me though, and I'm sure it will also function for a certain type of person. So if you're spinning your tires on the same scene for the 10th session in a row, what have you got to lose? By the way, you may have picked up on some background noise throughout this video. That'd be because I'm not using a microphone right now. If you've been with the channel for any length of time, you know that the one I've been using is not the best. It turns out that my phone's internal mic provides better audio than the one I bought, albeit with background noise fully intact, so that's what I'll be using for a while. One of the most consistent pieces of feedback I've received since I got up and running is that I need a better mic. Believe me, I know. Unfortunately, I'm not made of money, so this will have to do until such a time as I am flush with cash and have the availability to research equipment. Point of this and the last video being, get yourself a Richter scale.